on the company's investments during her ownership of Lambert. Her death while Dahlia was in college in the States was a heartbreaking blow to Dahlia and her father. He adored his wife, and Dahlia and her mother were very close. Constance and Hunter had lived in New York in the early days of their marriage, and Dahlia attended private school there. They remained in New York until Dahlia went to college, Hunter retired, and he and Constance moved to Paris. They had gone back and forth to Paris frequently before that, and Dahlia was equally comfortable in Paris or New York, in English or in French, while she was growing up. She had strong family ties to France, and had spent her early years in New York, with summers spent in their summer home in Saint-Paul-de-Vence, in the south of France. And once she was in college, she worked at the Lambert offices in Paris for a month every summer and loved it. 2 years after they moved to Paris, Constance had died of breast cancer at 42. It had gone undetected until too late. Her mother had died of it at an early age too. Dahlia had inherited the Lambert empire at 20, finished college at Columbia, attended the Wharton Business School, moved to her parents' house in Paris, and entered the company she owned at 24. The people who had run it until then taught her what she needed to know. They had been grooming her to run the company for years. Her grandfather had begun talking to her about the business since she was a child. She was fascinated by it. She benefited from his manager's experience and her father's wise financial advice for a year, as she was assigned to lower-level jobs where she could learn the business from the bottom up, just as she had expected to. Hunter Johnson died suddenly at 72, less than a year after Dahlia came home to France, 5 years after his wife had died. He had never recovered from the loss of Constance. Even his deep love for his daughter didn't raise his spirits once his beloved Constance died. He had developed a heart condition which killed him in the end. Dahlia was an orphan and the sole owner of one of the most profitable businesses in the world, just before her 25th birthday. Slim, graceful, blonde, green-eyed, she had been taught everything she needed to know about the business by experts, and she had strong support from the managers and the board, but nothing had prepared her for losing her parents' world. They had been the source of joy and emotional support, wisdom and love for her entire life, and without them, she felt lost. Her father had died of a heart attack with no warning. She stood alone at his funeral with the church of Sainte Clotilde full to the rafters. She continued to live in her parents' house in Paris and felt like a lost soul. Her father had died a year after she had graduated from business school at Wharton and gone to live in Paris. At the same time, she ran into Jean-Luc de Beaumont a month after her return from graduate school. He was a childhood friend. His family had spent their summers in Saint-Paul-de-Vence too. They saw each other every summer in the south of France and had known each other all their lives. He was comfortable and familiar. Dahlia was a perfect hybrid, a combination of 2 cultures, 2 countries, and 2 worlds. Her look and style and attitudes were more French than American because of her mother's influence, but she had grown up in New York, been educated in the U.S., and had an American perspective about business, based on what her American father had taught her. It was an ideal combination. She had the romance and femininity of a Frenchwoman and the education of an American businesswoman, which she brought back to France with her. She was a dual national and felt at home in both countries, although she privately admitted that her heart was more French, and she felt stronger ties to France once she lived and worked in her business there. France was home to her now, and with her father's death, her ties to the United States evaporated. Since he'd been much older than her mother, he had no living relatives during her lifetime. And once he was gone, she had no adult family members to protect and guide her. But she was a sensible young woman with a fine mind, and her parents had taught her values that served her well. She was a woman of integrity, substance, and power at a young age. When they reconnected, Jean-Luc de Beaumont added an element of joy and levity to her life. He had a light-hearted attitude about most things. He had studied in France